Bajan sunrises and sunsets are not only a theoretical expression, but contextually speaking, sunrises and sunsets can appear identical, as there is no difference in the light coming from the sun itself at those times, and it passes through the same distance of atmosphere according to Natural Navigator. However, this thinking has influenced me as an author, cinematographer, media arts specialist, licensed cultural practitioner, podcaster, and publisher through my lens to capture and frame Bajan sunrises, since they occur in the morning, and Bajan sunsets, which occur in the evening, was captured and framed in publication 270 and ventilated in publication 270 in this podcast 144 in ISBN 9798 88589 1684. Within the precincts of linguistics and culture, there is a difference between the context of the construct Barbadian, which, according to HMB Barbados, I quote, is the formal and official name for citizens of the Caribbean island of Barbados. However, the term Barbadian is only used to fill out official documents and in passports. Business people should also use the term Barbadian in lectures and presentations. End quote. Further, in this linguistic space, it should be noted that according to HMB Barbados, I quote, in Barbados, the term Bajan is used by the majority of people in everyday life. Among themselves, the residents of Barbados call each other actually always Bajans. Even radio and TV stations mainly use the term Bajan. The same applies to many newspapers and online media. End quote. All things being equal, similarly, in the realm of science, according to annualvisuals.com, I quote, most people believe that sunrise and sunset lights are the same. Although in both situations, we have a blue hour and a golden hour period, the light is not identical. Sunrises tend to have a more bluish tone, whereas sunsets tend to have a yellower tone. This difference can be more noticeable at the moment that the sun sets or rises, as in one case, after many hours of darkness, the sun rises, and in the other case, the sun sets after illuminating the scene for hours. End quote. In this context, I have always wondered whether there were different features in a sunrise as opposed to a sunset, especially looking at a photograph. According to naturalnavigator.com, I quote, sunrises and sunsets can appear identical, as there is no difference in the light coming from the sun itself at those times, and it passes through the same distance of atmosphere. End quote. According to journeynorth.org, I quote, sunrise and sunset, the sun stays in its position at the center of our solar system. It doesn't rise and set, but it appears to rise and set because of the Earth's rotation on its axis. End quote. A further probe has underscored the fact that, I quote, sunsets look different than sunrises because the sun is low on the horizon. Sunlight passes through more air at sunset and sunrise than during the day when the sun is higher in the sky. Most atmosphere needs more molecules to scatter the violet and blue light away from you. End quote, according to news.wis.edu. The aforesaid line of reasoning provided a platform and clarification, according to photographyacademy.com. I quote, why sunrise is better than sunset for photography is that most people are still sleeping while you are out taking photos, and sunrise isn't always better than sunset. There are many cases where the setting sun can have far more beautiful and dramatic weather than sunrise. End quote. That said, according to Quora, I quote, the difference between sunrise and sunset pictures, more pink and peach during sunrise, brighter and harsher sunset, softer and diffuse sunrise, dew or lightly misty fog generally mean sunrise because Earth is often cooler than atmosphere in the early morning. End quote. In this discourse, according to livescience.com, I quote, at sunset, the sky is full of pollutants and wind-borne particles, end quote. The authors write, on the other hand, more dust and smog at sunset can have the effect of scattering light across a greater region of the sky, creating a larger drape of colors, whereas sunrise colors tend to be more focused around the sun. End quote. I suppose that looking at this topic through the lens of photographic psychology, according to users writer.edu, I quote, sunset is a period of rest and self-reflection, whereas sunrise means the beginning of life. Therefore, together, sunrise and sunset remind us of the cycles in nature, including global citizens. End quote. Desert.com has advocated, I quote, sunrise is symbolic of birth, growth, new beginnings of all kinds, resurrection, even the creation, and nearly everything that has a cherished or hoped for origin. And sunset, trending to be symbolic of endings, death, and all things associated with darkness, provides contrast essential for expanding our vision. End quote. In the scheme of things, sunsets have a calming power for me. A gloriously setting sun can wipe away crankiness, restore a sense of peace, and remind me that I am only a small part of a much bigger picture. That life is so much more than my crankiness and bad attitude, and the stuff I get irritated with is usually not worth sweating, according to Queensland and beyond. End quote. Now that I have contextualized Bajan sunrises and sunsets, it can be characterized as a theoretical expression. In this ambience, contextually speaking, I agree that Bajan sunrises and sunsets can appear identical, as there is no difference in the light coming from the sun itself at those times as it passes through the same distance of atmosphere. End quote. That said, I have advanced the view that Bajan sunrises and sunsets through research and education was captured and framed in this conversation with my lens as an author, cinematographer, media art specialist, licensed cultural practitioner, podcaster, and publisher. Bajan sunrises and sunsets, according to ScienceDaily.com, I quote, colors are as a result from a phenomenon called scattering, coupled with the fact that this expository is about, I quote, sunrise occurring in the morning and the sunset occurring in the evening, end quote. Advocated by Natural Navigator, was captured and framed in publication 270 and ventilated in podcast 144 in ISBN 9798 88 589 1684.